You guys are like the hardest working multi-generational duo in the industry. I think I counted that together you have over 100 movies, some of the best TV series, novels, 2 albums, the new movie Wildcat. And Ethan, you're going to receive the Stockholm Achievement Award. So do you know where you're going to put it already?
I'm going to give it to Maya and she can put it with hummus.
Yeah. You have a pair, and then when you get yours, you have a pair.
I actually have a shrine where I keep all of my parents' awards. They're all above my mantelpiece, actually.
And I also want to say congratulations because the strike, the longest strike for actors is over.
That is
finally.
amazing.
Yeah.
And this is actually the first time you get to talk about other projects as well, coming projects, and so we're really honored that you're doing it here in Sweden.
Oh, very happy to be here. Wonderful place to celebrate.
And before I let the crowd loose, Maya, we know that you have, Swedish heritage.
I
Your
do.
great-grandmother, your grandmother, your mother. Did you have Swedish traditions growing up?
We actually did, I think. I mean, whether or not, how much they kind of mutated in their long time in the States, I don't know, but we would do the rice pudding with the almond at Christmas, and at Easter time, the coin roll. Does that mean anything to anyone? Like rolling a coin down a slide? Never mind. Okay. Christmas at night.
Yes, on the 24th.
Swedish meatballs.
Yes.
That's so some things.
Yeah.
We have some things. We used to go to Santa Lucia at Christmas as well in the Swedish church in the city. It's great.
And you're here with Wildcat. Now, Flannery O'Connor, it seems to me, is someone that really resonated with you forever. You actually auditioned at Juilliard with one of her texts.
I did. I think that my paternal grandmother showed it to Ethan when he was young, and then I got shown it by an English teacher, and I just got obsessed with it. And yeah, I did. I used it as an audition monologue for a bunch of different drama schools.
And this has become like a passion project. And Ethan, you got the job
I
to
did.
direct.
The competition was steep.
Yeah.
He had the best audition.
Was it intimidating to direct your daughter's passion project, someone who's done so much of it?
Well, I always find doing anything that you care about is intimidating. It was a wonderful thing. Maya had this passion for Flannery O'Connor, and she was getting interested in producing and developing her own work, and it felt, I'm trying to find the right word for it. It felt like an honor that, for people who have kids, when your grown children are interested in you, it's very flattering, that they can choose to fly away and they're circling back. It's very exciting. And the fact that she would be circling back towards home with a subject matter that she, more than anybody else alive, knew how much it meant to me. And so it was a combination of wanting to honor and respect an artist that I loved. Flannery O'Connor is a very intimidating presence. She's a ferocious woman and very discerning mind and very disciplined spiritual thinker. And when you study her, you do so immediately from a subservient position. I mean, she radiates an intelligence and a pursuit of excellence that is at a very high level. And so the idea of trying, it would be so humiliating to make a stupid movie about such an intelligent woman. So that was intimidating. And then on top of it, obviously I wouldn't want to let Maya down, but it very quickly felt like ours. It was part of...
That was nowhere... even my interest in it is from such an emotional, communal language and landscape of our conversations for my whole life. Like, the reason that I'm interested in that is because we've been talking about the intersection of creativity and your relationship to whatever higher power my whole life. And so the why we would do this together is very obvious.
Made perfect
to us,
sense to us.
And immediately
it was an
into
ongoing
place.
conversation. Then the film is an extension of that conversation.
Yeah.
I'm going to open the floor to questions. So please, over here.
So, what new things did you discover about each other working together like this?
Well, I don't know if it was new, but it was wonderful to get to see Maya as have an adult relationship to work. You know, she's been working a lot in the. You know, when we were last year in Stockholm, was kind of the beginning of Maya's professional career. You were in school still and deciding whether or not to drop out of school and start professionally pursuing this craft. And that's 6 years ago. And to watch what happened to her relationship to just the minutia of filmmaking, the hair and makeup trailer, the AD department, how she relates to other actors, she's already developed some habits and professional language that she uses. It was exciting to see her as a legit adult artist. But I don't know if you felt that it was new. It was exactly what I expected from you. It was exciting to do, for both of us to be challenged at such a level at the same time. It wasn't like, oh, Maya was helping Dad out with this movie that was really important to him, or it wasn't like I was helping it meant a lot to both of us. And I was challenging myself at the highest level that I had challenged myself as a maker of films, and Maya was pushing herself as a performer. And so we were both swimming in the deep end of the pool for ourselves, and so whatever that means to us. So it wasn't about discovering anything new, was it?
No, I think that, you know, this is the first front-facing public artwork we've done together that we're sharing with the world. But the making of things together didn't feel particularly like untrod ground.
It's just this part that's so new.
This
is really new. This is scary. This is ways. The making the movie felt very natural. We've been talking about, you know, movies and music
and doing play
art
readings
and play readings in the living room, and we've been doing that forever. We did a reading of Waiting for Godot when you were 15 in the living room full of people. It was really fun, and it felt very natural. This part is hard.
Yeah.
You know, being a family and trying to have a public relationship with that feels dangerous and scary, and but the making of it was just a blessing.
Mark?
One question I have.
Over here?
All the way in the
Yeah.
back?
But right before, right here.
Oh, okay.
I can't see there. Yeah. Hey.
I don't know if you have a business card, but if you would have one or get one, which and in what order would you have? Actor, director, author, writer?
Alphabetically?
Yeah. Can I go first?
No, it was not for me. That was my answer to you.
To you. No.
That was a joke.
I think Maya's. Well, now I'm going to sound like a dad, but like, I'll speak for myself.
I think that question was only for you. Also.
Yeah, well, my business card. I actually feel my primary relationship to the art is as an actor. And that I've really learned about writing and directing through acting. Acting put me in rooms with great writers. As a young person, I was in the room rehearsing and working, watching serious writers work in a way that was very exciting and made it seem like a very substantive profession. And the same with directors. And so my first love is and always will be performance. And when I come to direct, I largely like to do it to celebrate actors. That's largely where my thought process is how to make a space with all the tension and things that go on with making a movie that is conducive to the actor. Because I spent years on sets that make it harder to do a good job, you know. And so that's how my card would read.
Maya, this year you've worked, or you have movies out with some incredible directors. Wes Anderson,
That's
Master
true.
of City. You have Bradley Cooper coming up in Maestro.
Yeah.
Ethan Hawke in Wildcat.
It's
Can you
true.
compare a little bit those directors and how?
Can I compare those directors? I mean, I think that I've been really lucky in my life to work with people who all work really differently. and it teaches you about how you like to work. And so those people are all incomparable, but also those films are incomparable. Like, you would never make Wildcat the way that you made Asteroid City. Like, that would never be how you made those movies. And so they're totally incomparable experiences. My relationships with all the directors are very different. I'm very, very close with the director of Wildcat.
I can see that. All the way in the back?
Yes, hello.
Hi.
A question for you, Maya. There's a lot of acting in your family, and I was wondering if you consider yourself more similar to your dad or your mom in your acting.
I don't know. I hope to be myself. And I think that if I started watching my performances and picking through for other people's habits, I would actually lose my mind. But I hope to be myself, and I would be honored to be compared to either.
In the back?
Could you describe Maya's best skills?
For best skills?
How would you
Doing, picking, cleaning my room.
No, not that. Yeah. My favorite, I like this in everybody, and Maya has it in spades, which is passion. We were talking this morning about, enthusiasm and the great value of believing and wanting to believe. And so if anybody has listened to her music, the poetry in her music is undeniable, and it's somehow directly related to her life as an actor. They have a clear and obvious relationship to each other that I think is what makes her really an exciting actor to be around, and a person. How's that?
Yeah, great.
Oh, right here first.
The strike is over.
Yeah.
How important was that? What do you thought when you heard about it?
How important is it that the strike is over, or that it happened?
What do you thought when they...
I know it's extremely relevant in Maya's life because they've been waiting to start the last season of Stranger Things that was supposed to start months and months ago. So it's been, there's a huge crew of people that are just waiting and waiting and waiting. And so I think that's, for me, it was strange because I'd been directing this movie all for that. And so it's actually the longest time period since I was like 16 that I haven't acted. I've been professionally acting since I was 16 years old, and this is the first year since then that I've done a full year without acting, which is unsettling. In regards to the profession, the way that movies are interacting with the world is changing dramatically, and it feels a lot like what happened in the music industry 20 years or so ago, where we're being inundated with so much material, and how it's sold and how it's received is changing so dramatically that it's really impacting artists' lives. And we're trying to have some agency over that, and it's very difficult. I have not seen what the deal they struck has been, and I don't know
I don't think it's been released yet.
I don't know how successful a strike it's been. I know that it's a really important conversation to be had, and I'm not worried about. Well, I could say some negative things, but I won't.
I think we're both very grateful that it happened, and very believe that artists as a community need to collectively understand how to restructure an industry that has been drastically impacted by the internet, and also excited to go back to work and glad we made a deal.
Right in the middle here?
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. Hi, Dad. Thank you for the invitation, and great being here with you. The question I have is, more and more spiritualism is more active and more important part of people's life, especially in the younger generation. I mean, do you see any shift in the movie industry to adapt that part of people's lives?
Is that true?
It
Is it more popular amongst young people now? I feel like the opposite was true for many years.
No,
It's coming back up?
Yeah, it is, certainly, because, like I said, especially that I'm kind of interact with a lot of different people, not just with one part or one group, and I see a lot more people being kind of, I'd say, more like awakened to the spiritualism. And so that's what I would like to hear, especially like you direct movies and you make any style. Do you see any shift to accommodate that? If so, if not, then maybe it's something it's worth looking into. Because there is definitely a big shift in people consciousness.
I hope that what you're saying is true. I'm not saying I don't believe you. I really hope that you're right.
Certainly be better for our movie.
It would certainly be better for our movie and for us. I think that there are several different ways to look at movies, particularly as an art form. Are they helping you waste your time, or are they a part of your life? Is it something to turn your brain off from the hours that you work before the hours that you sleep, or is it something that engages your brain and enriches your life? And people with an interest in their own inner life don't want to be asleep. And so I find that very exciting. Are we using the phone? Are we using the internet to kind of put ourselves to sleep? Or can we use these tools to bring light into our lives? And so my relationship to movies and literature and all the arts has been about trying to engage in a more interesting conversation as opposed to a less interesting conversation. So I hope that's
And
true.
in terms of faith, First Reformed and this one, you've really been exploring that the past few years.
Yeah, and even it was, First Reformed was a great experience because, I'm not just saying this because I'm in Stockholm, but First Reformed owes a great debt to Bergman, right? Winter Light is a major, major part of First Reformed. And so, and I think you could take Pavel Pawlikowski's Ida and some other movies that are kind of encouraging audiences back to a more meditative place with film as opposed to an entertainment place. And I find that really exciting, and I doubt I would have made this movie in the same way without the experience of making First Reformed.
There was right there, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, I have a question about an old film, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I grew up in the 90s, and right now the 90s is like a hot topic. So in podcasts and books about the 90s, there's one thing that comes up quite often, which is that Reality Bites is the quintessential 90s film, because the ethos of championing not having a job and not selling out, but at the same time, and that would never have happened in any other time. But there's also people are saying the girl chose the wrong guy because the times are different now. I'm curious about, and this is maybe to both of you, if Maya have seen the film, is what are your thoughts on Reality Bites and that time and this time, something like that?
It is the idea that you would choose the guy who doesn't want a job and just wants to hang out over the guy who's obviously going to make millions of dollars now is interesting. What I think is wonderful about that movie is Winona and Helen Childress. Helen Childress' script is, when people focus on that conversation, they're missing the kind of point of that movie, I think, which is more that she's on her own journey. And I don't have a lot of hope for Lelena's relationship with Troy's future. I don't think that's going to go very well. And I think the other guy was too superficial anyway, so they're just two of her temporary boyfriends at the moment. She's going to have a much better life than either of those knuckleheads. But I don't know, I find that interesting. I watched the movie again recently, and the way the world perceives what is a good thing and what is a bad thing is changing, and has changed. I mean, it was such a big deal in the 90s about whether or not that band used their song for an advertisement, and they would be looked down upon. And, Neil Young would be out, this bud's for you, and making jokes all about that. And now bands don't have any other opportunity to make money.
I was going to say, I think they would love to be turn their nose up at doing that, but there's no way that the industry
they don't get paid to record music anymore. Yeah. So how are they going to pay for their band? How are they going to pay for their tour? And I mean, the interconnectedness of all our behavior, that they don't exist in a vacuum. It's all interrelated, and so. I often think another great 90s film is Slacker, and I don't know how Slacker would it get released today. It would come out on YouTube and be one of them. It's not the artist that made the movie that's important, it's the audience. The fact that audiences cared about a punk rock movie that was made for $16,000 that had incendiary ideas, that didn't have a beginning, middle, and end, that was changing the form. Well, I think artists are always doing innovative work. It's whether or not audiences care about it and make it important. John Cage or different people who push music forward. Do we celebrate that, or do we not celebrate it? I find that is interesting. And in the case of what you're talking about, Ben Stiller's character, now all we celebrate is the accumulation of wealth and status. So it seems silly that she would pick the other path.
But he's also a nicer guy.
Yeah, but nice is overrated.
Yeah. But I mean, Robin in Stranger Things has resonated so much with young audiences. Why is she such an incredible character right now?
God, I think it's really hard to have perspective. It's easy to have that, or it makes sense to have that conversation because there's 20 years to look back on and see what was important about it and what resonated. And I think that, it's harder to understand what's happening in the moment. And I think that the show as a whole resonates with audiences. And therefore, the show has so many people who watch it. There are groups of people who care about one character or another, or, it's like, I remember being a kid with the Twilight movies and the passion that some people had in the Jacob Edward debate was just vehement. And I think it's hard to have perspective. I don't know, but I feel grateful to be a part of it.
Also about depression.
That was just my theory.
Yeah.
The Duggan brothers don't agree with that, but
everyone agrees with that. I think that's why it resonates.
Well,
I think so too.
Yeah.
I find it. I think about this more often than I should, but I see, I go to the airport and I see people with Hawkins sweatshirts on, and I see that the impact, the cultural impact the show is having on a generation, and how that generation will feel about this moment in time 25 years from now will change.
Well, what I will say is I do think that my generation is valuing friendships really highly, and they're valued really highly in the show. I'm not saying there's necessarily a causation there, but the show is really about friendships, and I notice more and more my peers, it's way less about romantic relationships or who you end up with or if you're going to get married, and it's becoming really about what your friendships are like and your community. There's a real emphasis on being an honorable friend. So I don't know, that maybe that's connected.
Since Reality Bites has been many years for you as an actor, what is the most important thing you have picked up through the years?
That's too hard. That's too hard. A gratitude for life, a gratitude for existence. I mean, what's difficult about being young is that you feel a tremendous pressure to be heard and be recognized and be witnessed and to be seen. And as you get older, or at least for me, I feel a general awareness of the generation as a sum total and what we are contributing as a group, and a gratitude for being a part of the profession. And if you want to say what I've learned over the years, it would just be about that, is seeing yourself as part of a collective wave that is connected with the other artists that are alive during your time period and the audiences in your relationship to each other.
I'd like to go back to Wildcat, and I wonder, I guess both of you read Flannery O'Connor, lots of her work, but how did you choose which parts and from which novels to use in the movie?
Well, Maya had the idea to make a movie, like Maya really wanted to play this character, and she found Miss O'Connor an incredibly exciting person and was very interested in the idea when we were first talking about it, wouldn't it be great to make a movie about a young woman, and the primary relationship of the movie would be to herself and to her work. And we see a lot of movies about men and their relationship to work, but often when you're seeing movies that center women, they have to do with their relationships. And that was an exciting idea. Her life was not full of drama. Her inner life was full of tremendous drama. And so I very quickly thought, well, the only way to make a movie about her is to get inside her imagination. And so I tried to read all her published work in one sitting, just over a period of a couple months, just to read nothing really but her work. And a kind of portrait of her appears to you. If you sit and read her canon, you start to see her. And I thought that that's what the movie should be. And I started to see which stories had an autobiographical element to them, and the writer in me could understand why she might have written that story, and tried to place them. It was kind of a collage art, trying to use her writing to tell her story. That was the goal.
Yeah, hi, it's wonderful to have you here. I have a brief one for each of you, a question. For Maya, I think you're a musician, your father just mentioned something. How that important is in your professionally, or how that connects with your film actor career?
For me, all creativity stems from a similar place, and it's the desire of storytelling and a desire for community and collaboration. Those are my favorite things and where I feel the most excited. There's one of my favorite things about even getting a little bit older is the feeling of being able to contribute. And I've spent the most time learning about acting and acting in my life. And now when I come onto set, whether or not this is true, I have the feeling that I could contribute. That I've spent enough time working and thinking about these subjects that I'm truly prepared to be there. I've spent much less time as a musician, and it's very intimidating and really nerve-wracking to be in the student position while you're still putting out work. But I like to do that because it reminds me to stay in the student position as an actor, and to try to stay there all the time, because there's always more you can be learning and growing, and it's good. It's the David Bowie quote that you want to be in the ocean just deep enough that your toes can barely touch the bottom of the floor. You want to be just a little unsure. And so both things react and respond to each other, and I feel so lucky to be able to be doing both.
I hear you, that's great. And for you, I think to this point, you're as a director, you have an amazing career. I think you were 18 when it was a milestone when you did the Poets Society. Do you look back to anything that you learned from those early days when you're more like a sponge?
I think the great bulk of us all look back on those years form us. They form my experiences with Peter Weir. I didn't even know how defining they were. That's what I think of when I think of what a film director is supposed to be. They're supposed to be like Peter Weir. And I think about the way that he talked to actors, and I think about the way that he talked to the DP, and the way that he talked to all the different elements of the key positions on a film set. And you don't even know. I had an amazing experience on that movie with Norman Lloyd, he was old then, and he was playing the headmaster, and he had worked with Orson Welles. He'd been part of the Mercury Theater Company. He'd worked with Charlie Chaplin, and I was joking around on set one day and kind of being an idiot, and he called me up and he said, "Are you having a good time?" And I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Yeah, you don't even know the time you're having." You're having the time of your life, and you will be thinking about this your whole life. So pay attention. Stop joking around so much, because you're going to spend decades of your life trying to get back in a room like this. So be in the room right now. And I'm like, God, what an intense old guy.
Yeah.
You know?
Sure.
But I've thought about it all the time. He was 1,000% right.
Absolutely. I mean, from what my dad said before, what I got most excited about from her as a young person was her prayer journal, which makes sense in some ways because it's some of her youngest work. And it really is a direct window into who she is as a person and the way that she saw the world. And that was my focus. And I love the stories, but I don't think I totally understood the connection between the two. I didn't see what my dad saw, which was I saw someone who I admired, because I felt like everything I tried to write or work on was so me. Even if I disguised it and gave my character a different name and put them in a different place, I thought it was so obvious that you could just see me in it. And I admired her, that her story seemed so out of the realm of what her life was like. And my dad really showed the connective tissue and the ways in which even she was exposing herself in her fiction. And that was an incredible lesson, and I think has really deepened my understanding of her as a writer and writers in general.
I'd like to ask about the use of the N-word in the movie. Is that something that it could be construed like a statement on cancel culture? Why did you want to use that in the movie?
I think she was raised in the Jim Crow South, and it's like studying a tree that's growing in any environment. It's raised on the minerals and toxins and the wind and the rain of that area. And that's part of the fabric of who she's. An American artist, and when you dig deep into American art, you'll come across the sins of America and what is beautiful and what is ugly about it. And so to ignore it would be a mistake. And one of the things that I admire about her relationship to race in America as an artist is that she didn't virtue signal. She has a quote, I'm paraphrasing, but if the point of a writer's work is to illustrate that they're a good person, it doesn't interest me. You know, and that she was very interested in hypocrisy, in the way we present ourselves versus the way we really are. And she had a great awareness of white hypocrisy in the South, particularly in Christian America. And so it's an important foundational part of her work. She's writing 10 years after Margaret Mitchell. You know, this is what she was up against and what she was at war with. And the way society's opinions about who's a good person and who's a bad person changes. And so people's relationship to that work and what she's saying continues to change and evolve. But it seemed silly to engage in telling her story without addressing that huge aspect of where she's from.
And who she's making fun of in that story is white Christians, the people she was surrounded by, you know, and she was one herself. And she was a self-admitted racist, but also someone who saw white hypocrisy and saw the hypocrisy inside racism. So who is being made fun of there is Miss, what's her name again? Mrs.
Ruby Turpin.
Ruby Turpin. You know, that's who's being mocked there. Is that her idea of Jesus is this guy, this white man with a lamb.
Yeah, I mean, to put racist language in the mouth of Jesus of Nazareth is a very deliberate move, and a very provocative move still. And how else is white supremacy cloaked?
But did you get any pushback on that during production?
Of course. I mean, it's very unsettling. It's upsetting. It's confusing.
To basically everyone,
to
both
everyone,
sides, you know,
to
I mean,
every
whatever
side, and that's what makes it great art. You know, it's sticking its finger in a very tender place, and asking you what you think about it. You know, it reminds me of something Dave Chappelle might do. You know, it's makes you deeply uncomfortable. And one of the things I like about a lot of her stories is you don't read it and finish and go, gosh, I loved that. You know, that was terrific. You just can't stop thinking about it. You know, she's putting her imagination in a place that you don't know where you stand. How do I feel about that? It's not clear who's a good person, who's a bad person. It's very, very messy. And she's really hunting for where is grace and all that. Where is understanding with all these scratchy, ugly, smelly human beings?
They're telling me we're almost out of time. Do one more question here. She's gonna...
Yeah.
Not really. Last question.
Last question.
Actually, last question.
Okay, I have a question for Ethan. You are here to get the Lifetime Achievement Award. Does that give you a little bit of perspective, look at your life with a little bit of distance and say, wow, I've achieved a lot? If you yourself were to pour your pride on your lifetime achievements, not just professionally, perhaps also personally, what are the achievements that you fill your heart, that make you feel more proud?
You know, I really try not to think that way. Almost anybody you talk to, like, what's going to be the best thing they have done with their life? Most people say tomorrow, this thing I'm working on, or the thing I just finished, or I feel an immense gratitude to still be at this game and still have the privilege of sitting here with all of you people and be talking about movies. It's what I love most. So to be in this game. I remember Peter Weir once said that you just want to be in the game. You just want to get to play. It doesn't really matter winning and losing and this, that, and the other thing, or accomplishments, or nothing's going to be remembered. Achievements, I love participating and being here, and it does amuse me in a positive way when I think about when I first did like a press tour of traveling Europe when I was 19. It was right after Dead Poets Society came out, and I came through all of Europe doing premieres of White Fang. You know, I had to do photo shoots with a dog, you know, and the idea that I would be back here and get this prize. Yeah. One needs encouragement in life, and one needs confidence. And so I value it immensely because you want the energy that anybody cares. Mm-hmm. We all do all this work, and sometimes the enemy in your voice is nobody cares, nothing matters. And we look around and we see a few things, and we know that, oh, she made a difference. He did something good. It does matter. You lose friends along the way, and you miss them. They did matter. The world is less without them. Mm-hmm. And so it's meaningful to me the way that confidence is meaningful. You know, it's hard to hold confidence. Yeah. So it means a lot.
They're telling me I have to round up, but thank you guys so much. And of course, I have to mention that you're in Pedro Almodovar's life, which is here as well. And thank you all for coming, and thank you to Hotel Novus for letting us be here. And thank you.
And we'll also be able to see the short movie.
Yes. Yeah. Pedro Almodovar. That's what. Yeah. Yeah. Spencer. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.